Today I have 3 different Urban Outfitters and West Elm Dollar Tree DIY decors for you. I have a couple more of these videos coming up soon, so if you're not already, make sure that you subscribe and hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss the ones that are coming up. Our first DIY are these Urban Outfitter planters. They run from $79 to $129 depending on the size. For this project, I picked up 2 of these wooden handled plungers, this large white bowl, and this smaller dog food bowl from the Dollar Tree. I spray painted both of the bowls with a white satin finish Krylon spray paint. I wanted them both to match, and I did not like that the white bowl had a glossy finish. As the bowls were drying, I took the plunger handle and I cut off the one side of the handle that was rounded and the other side of the handle that was inside of the rubber plunger. I marked the handle to the length that I want the feet to be before cutting it. I decided that I wanted the smaller planter to have 3-inch legs and the larger planter to have 4-inch legs. Using my miter saw, I cut 3 in each size. To install the feet on the planter bowls, you want 3 screws, a drill, and a drill bit. Before attaching the feet, I took each one of them and sanded both sides to make sure they're smooth. That way when they're done, they'll stand completely flat on the surface that I put them on. You want to mark where you're going to drill the holes through the bottom of the bowl. You can eyeball the placement between the 3 spots. I used a ruler just to try to make sure that they were evenly spaced apart from each other, as well as just eyeballing it to make sure it looked about right. Once you've marked where you want the feet to go, take your drill bit and drill a pilot hole into each of those 3 spots on the bottom of the bowl. Then drill a pilot hole into one side of each of the 3 feet. Drilling the pilot holes first will keep you from cracking the plastic bowl or splitting the wood. After I drilled the pilot holes, I went back with the screws that I'm using and drilled a screw hole into each one of the feet as well as into the bottom of the bowl. This just makes sure there's less resistance when I'm attaching the 2, and I don't have to worry about it being too rough and the bowl cracking. At this point, the only thing left to do is to put the feet underneath the bowl and attach it from the inside of the bowl with the screw. Dollar Tree carries floral foam, but I got this pack of 5 at Michael's and it was on clearance for like $2. They also had all of their spring and summer floral 70% off, so I picked up this greenery for 70% off at Michael's as well. I really love how these planters turned out. The shape is not identical to the one on Urban Outfitters' website, but I feel like it's really close, and for only a couple bucks each, it's definitely worth the price savings. I set these on a little folding table that I'm using as a plant stand off to the side of my couch in the living room. This next DIY are these half-dipped vases from West Elm. They run between $17 and $60 depending on which one you choose. I've seen a couple of people make a vase similar to this one, but I'm going to do it a little differently. Now this DIY took a little bit of trial and error. I started off using a white spray paint that did not work well. I don't know if it was just an old bottle or what, but I switched it up and ended up just using the Krylon Color Max that I prefer to use anyways. The vase on the left-hand side is the one that I had used the other paint on originally, but the Krylon covered that up fine. Once the vases dried, I took them inside and I used my painter's tape to tape off the design that I'm going for. I wanted it to be angled so that the dipped part would look like it was coming down further on certain parts of the vase. I also didn't like the sharp point on every single one of these vases, so I peeled the corner up a little bit and rounded it out so that once I add the other finish to this vase, it won't have that sharp edge. To get that textured look, I used the Krylon stone finish in the color limestone. The problem that I had is that it comes out pretty thick and it started to glob up on the vase. So I realized I needed to be able to spray it from further away and get a finer mist. I wiped off what I could on that larger vase, then I went back and taped a Walmart sack over the vase, just covering the white areas that I did not want to get that spray paint on. With the plastic sack covering the white area, I could spray this textured spray paint from further away, getting a finer mist on there, and it gave it a more even finish. I applied 3 thin layers to each vase. I peeled the painter's tape up gently off of the vases, making sure not to scratch the white paint with my nail, and it didn't pull up any of the white paint at all. The contrast between the satin white finish and that textured sand look amazing together. The tape did, however, peel off some of the white paint on this larger vase, and I think that's because when I first sprayed it with that textured spray paint, it soaked through the tape and I didn't replace it before adding the bag and trying again. So I just covered that with a fresh coat of white paint on that top half. But in the end, I think they turned out really nice. I love that modern matte finish of the white and the texture of that stony sand finish. Urban Outfitters sells 2 different types of pampas grass. There's this set, which is $16 for a bundle of 3, and the other set is, I believe, $24 for a bundle of 3. I got this idea from a tutorial Justin Ray had on his channel recently, so this will be similar, but I have a different technique that I wanted to try and show you guys. For the stem, I'm using these dowel rods from the Dollar Tree. And for the tassels, Justin used the white cording from Dollar Tree, but I wanted to make macrame pampas grass, so I'm using macrame that's really inexpensive on Amazon, and I'll link that down below for you guys. I've had this spool of macrame for quite a while, and I'm also using his technique of making basically a template to make the tassels on out of a piece of cardboard. I cut this cardboard at an angle so that I can make 3 different sized tassels with it. I wrapped the cardboard in duct tape to make it more durable. This macrame is basically like 3 cords wrapped together into one. So I cut a length of macrame and I divided it into 3 separate pieces. Then I took one of those pieces and I hot glued it to one end of my dowel rod. I wrapped it all the way around the dowel rod about halfway down, adding an extra bead of glue every so often just to keep the macrame from coming unraveled or slipping off of the dowel rod. Once I had it wrapped halfway down, I added one more bead of glue to secure the macrame, and then I cut the cord off. I decided to make 9 of these dried pampas grass, so I wrapped 9 dowel rods with macrame cord. Then, before I start making the macrame tassels, I cut several few-inch long pieces of cording and separated those into 3 pieces to use that to tie off my tassels. Then I started making tassels for my macrame pampas grass. You want to make 6 of the large, 6 medium, and 6 small for each pampas grass that you're making. And since I was making 9, I needed to make 54 of each size. After I had all of my tassels made, I took a comb and I combed out every single one of the tassels. After all of the tassels were combed out for my first pampas grass, I laid them out in the order in which they were going to be attached to the dowel rod. The first one that I made, I followed Justin's tutorial, and I started off with the large pieces and I glued them to the middle of that wrapped portion of the dowel rod, starting in the exact middle, and then spacing them out about an inch away from each other. And then after getting those first 3 large tassels glued down, flipping the dowel rod over and gluing the other 3 down, filling in the gaps. Once I had the 6 large ones glued into the middle, I started with the medium size and I glued 3 medium ones further down from the large ones, spacing them out the same way and rotating both sides of the dowel rod, and then gluing 3 to the top, following that same pattern. I did the same thing again with the small tassels, still following that pattern all the way up. I really liked the way this was turning out, but I had a thought of trying something different. I felt like I had some gaps whenever I was styling the pampas grass on the sides that I couldn't get rid of, so I thought, what if I positioned them a little differently? So on the second pampas grass, I decided to try something different. And instead of starting with the large tassels in the middle first, I started with the smallest tassels and I glued one to the very top of the dowel rod. Then instead of flipping the dowel rod over and only placing the tassels on either side of the dowel rod, I turned the dowel rod about 1/3 of the way and glued down the next smallest tassel. Then I repeated this process of gluing down a tassel, turning the dowel rod 1/3 of the way instead of halfway, and gluing another one down. They're still in the same order. It still goes 3 small, 3 medium, 6 large, and then 3 medium and 3 small. They're just spaced out differently, which got rid of the issue that I was having with the gaps on the sides of the pampas grass when I styled it. At this point, it's looking pretty good, but before I style the pampas grass, I want to trim off any of the straggly or long pieces that are hanging off of the sides. Next, I held the pampas grass upside down and I sprayed it with hairspray to give it a little bit of hold and texture. And I just used my hand to kind of fluff it up and give it that look that natural pampas grass usually has. I did this with each one as I went, and then I clipped them up, hanging upside down for them to dry for the hairspray to completely set before holding them upright and putting them in the vase. And that's it. That is how the pampas grass turned out. I hope you guys enjoyed all 3 of these Dollar Tree DIYs. I had a lot of fun filming them, and I kind of have gone crazy with these lately, so I have a lot more to share with you guys, as well as some anthropology DIYs, which I'll have up hopefully in the next week. Also, I want to tell you guys thank you so much for supporting my channel. I just hit 1,000 subscribers, which I honestly did not think would ever happen. So if you're already subscribed, thank you so much for your continued support. I truly appreciate it. And if you're not already, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any future content. And if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button for me as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you next time.